So the Atlanta Hawks are just not a very good basketball team, right? A couple years ago, they make the conference finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, but it was one of those things where it felt like nobody really thought that they were going to win, right? That was also the infamous year where the Kevin Durant toe on the line game, and it was like, oh man, what would have happened? Would that have changed history? Because they would have been facing the Atlanta Hawks. Ultimately, the Milwaukee Bucks go. They end up beating them, and then they go and win the NBA championship against the Phoenix Suns. So since then, look, I've said this before. I think the worst thing that happened to Atlanta was making it to the conference finals because I think that they believed that they were better than they really were, rather than it was just kind of matchups and circumstances that kind of just allowed them to get to that point. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they still won games. They still did what they needed to do, but they weren't this team that was like, oh, they're a perennial just contending level team. And since that time, they have been nothing more than a play-in team, fighting year in and year out to be a play-in team. Like currently, they are 14-20 on the season. They are the 11th seed, so they are out of the play-in currently. They are only half a game behind the Chicago Bulls for the final play-in spot. Only a full game out from the Brooklyn Nets for the ninth spot, but they're 5.5 games out of the 8th spot, which, I mean, technically they're only 5.5 games out of the 5th spot because you have like the Heat, the Magic, the Pacers, the Cavs all kind of lumped together with the same record at 20-15. But realistically, the Atlanta Hawks are not going to catch those teams to all of a sudden be a playoff team. And reports have came out that Atlanta is looking to be a seller this trade deadline. Now, I think they should have done it last trade deadline. I felt that way about several teams, Toronto, the Chicago Bulls, right? Well, now it looks ultimately like the Atlanta Hawks are ready to finally move in that direction and are looking to kind of rebuild, retool. So based on the report from Mark Stein, Atlanta is determined to, as one source described it, build around Trae and Jalen Johnson going forward under new coach Quinn Snyder, which means DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, and Clint Capella, most notably, are all available in potential trades. And with sharpshooter Bogdan Bogdanovic expected to generate as much external interest as any current Hawk. So basically, it is a fire sale and everyone must go. Now, DeJounte Murray has been the guy that's kind of headlined just the trade talks and trade rumors. To me, this is where the Atlanta Hawks went most wrong, right? Again, I don't think that they were a bad team. I think that they were headed in the right direction, and I didn't have a problem with them looking to maybe make a trade to kind of upgrade, but DeJounte Murray just made no sense. It was like you have Trae Young, right? You have this young core. Either stay where you're at and then go find that other bona fide star to add to Trae Young, and now you're off to the races. Maybe now you can be a perennial contender, or just stay the course. You know, you have a nice core, you have a nice team, and allow guys to develop, mature, grow, kind of go through your lumps, right? And then maybe you can get to that point as a team. But instead, they looked at it as, hey, we just made the conference finals. Let's go get DeJounte Murray. And maybe, Trae Young plays off the ball, but, he can't play off the ball. So DeJounte Murray can play off the ball. And DeJounte Murray, now DeJounte Murray can't play off the ball. And it doesn't make sense. It's been a mess ever since. But DeJounte Murray is a piece that I think is there's two guys that I think are more tradable than anybody. I'll touch on the other guy here in a moment, but DeJounte Murray is very likely an asset that I think several teams could be interested in. Obviously, you have teams like the Lakers that are heavily rumored and reported. Philadelphia 76ers have emerged as a team that could be very interested in a DeJounte Murray, which I actually think that kind of makes sense. Because now you can kind of just let Tyrese Maxey just be the scoring option, right? Rather than trying to find that balance of playmaking and scoring. You can kind of just put him in the position of like, hey, just go get a bucket. Another team is the New York Knicks. Another team that I think makes a lot of sense also. You can, again, kind of use Jalen Brunson in that same role where it's like, hey, don't worry about playmaking. I mean, obviously he'll still make plays, but no, hey, you don't have to worry when DeJounte Murray's on the court. You don't have to worry about making plays as much. You can kind of just focus on just going and getting buckets, right? Just be the bucket getter. DeJounte Murray would give all of those teams mentioned, a point of attack guard, guy that can make some plays, give him some athleticism out on the perimeter. So I definitely think DeJounte Murray is going to have some suitors as far as trade options. And look, there's also the possibility of some other team kind of coming out of the woodwork, some other team emerging as like, okay, well, this team just got him, right? So I definitely could see DeJounte Murray in the right situation, really making an impact for a specific team. So I definitely see him as one of the main prizes this trade deadline. And then the other one is Bogdan Bogdanovic, right? I think he's the guy that makes sense for pretty much all the teams. The only thing with these guys is like the salaries, right? Especially like, look, every team in the league would love a guy like Bogdan Bogdanovic just because he's a guy that essentially fits anywhere. Right, you can put him on any team in the league, and he is going to have an impact. He is going to be able to play a role, whether it's coming off the bench, whether it's starting. Still 31 years old, so he's a guy that can really come in and be a key piece for several seasons. He also is in the first year of that 4-year deal. He's making $18.7 million this year, 17.2 then the following, then 16, then 16 with a club option, though, in the 2026-2027 season. So this is a guy where if you go trade for him, his contract actually drops each year, which gives you some flexibility going forward. But he's a guy I could definitely see a contender looking to try to go and acquire. One of the main options that is out there that's been kind of floated around are the Boston Celtics. Are a team that are very interested in adding in Bogdanovic. I don't really know how the Celtics get there, but hey, look, pretty much every contending team in the league would probably be looking to try to add a Bogdanovic, whether it's Bogdan or Boyan, right? But I definitely think Bogdan Bogdanovic is a guy that, again, he's gonna have he might have the most suitors out of anybody on the Atlanta Hawks. Are two guys that I think are I definitely think that there are teams that may be interested, but I think that they'll be a little tough to trade. First off is Clint Capella, right? Now, Clint Capella, don't get me wrong, I think is an excellent center. He's basically a walking double-double, and he's a guy that could really, make an impact on the basketball court in the right situation. The reason I think Clint Capella is a tough trade is what situation is that? Right? Like, because he's not a backup center and he's getting paid too much money to be a backup center, right? Like, and he's probably not going to want to go to a situation where he would play in a backup role. He's making almost 21 million this year, and then it jumps up to 22 million next season. And then in 2025, he becomes a free agent. So what team is going to want to pony up 20 million to go and trade for Clint Capella when most teams, at least the top teams, already all have a center, right? Like, you look at all the teams, like, who needs a center? Boston, they're fine. Bucks are fine. Sixers are fine. Knicks maybe, right? Maybe they go get Clint Capella. The Heat, maybe they look at Clint Capella and go, well, we could put Bam at the 4, maybe, but I think that they're going to save whatever assets they have to go and get like that star, if like a Donovan Mitchell becomes available or something, right? And then you look at like the teams in the West, it's like the Timberwolves are good, the Thunder, I don't see them making a push for him. The Nuggets are great. The Clippers, I don't think they have anything left to trade. The Kings don't need him. Dallas has been kind of linked to him, but is that a direction that they're going to go? Right, and especially with Lively, and he's been so good for them, I don't really think that they need him anymore. The Pelicans, right, they want to move off of Valanciunas, right, because they don't believe that he's going to re-sign. They were looking to try to move him in the offseason. So maybe that's kind of the compromise, right? Maybe the Pelicans go, well, maybe we can trade Valanciunas and go get Clint Capella. Maybe you work it out like a 3-team deal or something, right? I mean, outside of that, it's like who, like the Warriors, maybe. But again, I don't know what team is a team that really would be interested in going and acquiring Clint Capella. The Lakers are another team that I absolutely think could want Clint Capella, and maybe they go and try to get Murray and Capella. That's always a possibility, but do they have the assets for that, right? But same time, if there's not really a market for Capella, then it's like, okay, well, if we can just kind of get off of his contract and then, but then Murray, it's like, if teams like the Knicks and the Sixers and stuff are really interested in Murray, they just have more assets than the Lakers. So the Lakers are going to be the odd man out in that, unless the Hawks look at it as like, well, yeah, the Lakers only have, 1 first and a pick swap, but if they'll take all Clint Capella and Murray and we can get off of Capella's contract, then, maybe that's maybe they view that as like another asset. I don't know. Again, it's just kind of fuzzy because most of the top teams already have their center locked up and are already in a good position center-wise. So I just don't think that there's going to be a big market, if much, for Clint Capella, at least right now. Maybe in the offseason, once musical chairs, especially amongst big men, start happening, maybe there is a team that goes, hey, you know what, let's go get Clint Capella, right? Like the Pelicans, right? If, let's say, Valanciunas, they can't find a trade for Valanciunas walks. It's like, well, we need a center. Let's go trade for Capella. So to me, I kind of look at Capella more likely than not getting moved around the trade deadline, in the offseason rather than the trade deadline. It's kind of where I'm at with that. And then last up is DeAndre Hunter, right? Now, look, Hunter, I think, is a guy that makes... That is kind of another plug-and-play guy, not as much as Bogdanovich, but again, he's another $20 million a year contract that has 4 years on his deal. He's not a free agent till 2026, 2027, and he hasn't been the guy that many thought he would be. He's had good moments as like a 3-and-D type guy. He's still only 26, so there's room for growth and improvement. He's got good size at 6'8", right? So there's definitely some positives in that regard, but this is a guy that's just, he's not like what is the demand for him? Now, he is shooting 40% from 3 this year on 4.8 attempts, which is good, but he's a career 36% three-point shooter. Like last season, he shot 35%. So that's always a concern too, is he just having a good stretch, or is he a guy that can continue to shoot 40% on 5 attempts? Because if that's the case, then that could really be impactful for multiple teams. Because now you're talking about a 15-5 guy that can play off the ball, hit some shots, hit some jumpers, defend multiple positions, right? I do think DeAndre Hunter, I think, is either going to have a heavy market or he's going to have no market. The only reason I don't think he's going to have a heavy market is because he's making $20+ million a year. And he just is starting that contract. Where, if he was making, say, 15 or, 12 or whatever, right? Then I think every team in the league would be trying to go and trade for Hunter. But at $20 million, it's again, how many teams have the salaries without messing up what they got going on? And how many teams are looking at Hunter as okay, that's a guy that's worth the $20 million to bring in and is going to have the impact and potentially put us over the top. So I just think it's a kind of an awkward position for Atlanta to be in. But as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Which of these guys do you think are most likely to be traded? Which of these guys do you want to see traded? And where would you like to see some of these guys go? I'd love to hear it. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.